these are just some ways that I think how you can use social media effectively. I'm not some sort of god at social media, but these are some of the things that I think anyway. So making use of the positives. If you can't see the person physically, I mean, very poignant at the moment. I think social media is brilliant. I'm in a lot of WhatsApp groups at the moment, Facebook groups. There's an app called like House Party where you can play games with people while you're seeing them as well. I think stuff with social media is brilliant in that way, and especially at like this time. I don't know if you've used anything recently, Jamie, to keep in touch with people.
Yeah, so I've just literally been invited to a quiz night, virtual quiz night, and one of my friends who lives in Australia wanted to meet up for a beer on the internet. So we're planning that. So he's going to be at night time and we're going to be in the daytime. So I think it's slightly better for him. But it did make me think we're doing this because of what's going on in the world at the moment, but we didn't get to see each other very often anyway. So maybe we should be making more use of this technology and hanging out. The other day as well, I spoke to my parents and my wife's parents during dinner. So we set up the laptop so the kids could chat to them. So it kind of felt like they were there with us. So yeah, it's forcing us to be creative, this current situation, and maybe some of these behaviors will stick and we can use them more frequently in the future.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. I haven't even thought of that one. So obviously you're probably not going to be arranging to see friends massively at the moment, but group chats and stuff, and yeah, stuff like that is really important. Like I said, making sure you keep in contact with friends. I think it's a brilliant way of staying in touch with people. But I think, yeah, that's one of the ways that you can use social media to be a positive thing. Talked about earlier, but seeking out help from organisations, I think is massive. Using those positives that obviously a lot of organisations will be using social media to for you to be able to get in touch with them. I think it's really important. So
yeah, I learned that lesson, Josh, from a friend. I'm not going to name the company so we don't get in trouble, but I had some problems with my broadband. So I was on hold for like 45 minutes and my friend had the same problem and tweeted that company. And his problem was dealt with within 24 hours. Mine took about a week. So yeah, the visibility of social media can really force companies' hands to ensure that they actually show they're doing good customer service. So it's quite an interesting area.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't even thinking of it like that, but yeah, it's definitely a useful tool to use if you are struggling with anything. Like, yeah, at your house, or you haven't got a delivery yet from ASOS. Tweeting them, you get instant feedback most of the time anyway. So ways to fight back against the negatives that I've got here, because like I said, I'm not here to say don't use social media, because there's so much positive that you can use, but just making sure that these negative things don't take over. So reducing the amount of time on social media. So I've seen definitely on Facebook and Instagram, you can set up an alert once you've hit a certain amount of time. You can pick the time, so it could be 30 minutes, it could be an hour, it could be 2 hours, it can be whatever you want, whatever you think is enough time that you should be on there. It just pops up on your screen and says you have been on Facebook for an hour now. Do you want to sort of continue? Then obviously it's still up to you whether you do want to be on there, but you've been told that, oh, I've spent quite a bit of time on there. So I think that's quite a useful tool, and I think other social media sites will start using this soon. If not, I might just not have been able to find it, but those two were quite easy, Facebook and Instagram. Being aware what time of the day you're using social media as well. So again, I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, but first thing in the morning is probably not the best time to be doing this, and also like the last thing that you do before bed. As Jamie said, especially on YouTube, if you start watching something, it slowly becomes like you're jumping down a wormhole basically. And you can be there till like 2 a.m. in the morning and you're watching something that was nothing related to what you had started watching before bedtime. But obviously it's not good to then be sort of missing out on sleep, which is on one of the stats that I've got on the next page. So again, I know that cyberbullying will happen. I think the best way to deal with this is obviously you can report and you can block people on there, and then talk to people just in general if this has happened. Don't go quiet about it. Like my sort of thought is, if you kind of ignore it and you do nothing, then nothing's going to change. Whereas if you try and do something, then there's a possibility that it will change. I know it's very difficult on like Twitter or Facebook to sort of get any real action against people, but it's slowly starting to turn. I believe anyway. I don't know if you've seen anything, Jamie, on this.
Yeah, I think one thing you need to be careful of is sort of feeding the negative energy. So if you sort of snap back at someone online, it just brings more interest and more intrigue, and people will try and elicit that sort of angry reaction. So I've heard of lots of people taking a break from either Twitter or Instagram just to get away from some of those things, because if you're not on it, you can't, they can't really affect you. So although I do feel like social media has so much positive, I think this is an area where sometimes people are too in the middle of the situation and struggle to see or have that perspective that actually there's a whole like real world out there. So you should step away from this sort of online stuff, but you need the support of your friends and family to do that. So yeah, speaking to actual people in your life around what's going on will certainly help you make decisions based on with a little bit of perspective, I would say.
Yeah, no, definitely. So go. Yeah, and this goes on to what I was talking about with fake news, just being switched on, and not everything you read on social media is true. So I'll just give the same advice as I said earlier. If you do read something that you're interested in or you think, oh, that's shocking, then try and find it from a reputable place and see if it actually is true. Just do a little bit of research yourself before you start sharing or you start telling people about it, because at the end of the day, as soon as you start doing it, it's then coming from yourself, and then if it turns out that it is fake, then you just look a little bit silly with it. Okay, so this is from the Royal Society for Public Health, and they did a report on social media. There's a few bullet points which have got some missing places. I'll give you like a couple of seconds just to sort of think about what that number could be, and then I'll reveal it, and then me and Jamie will have a little chat about it. So the first one is a percentage of 16 to 21-year-olds who use the internet for social networking, or just social media. I thought this would be high anyway. I don't know if you've seen this, Jamie, because I know this is my presentation. I don't know if you looked at the numbers before.
Yeah, I didn't. I looked at the slide, but I didn't look at the numbers. So yeah, I would imagine this would be high, maybe 70. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so 91% of 16 to 24-year-olds use the internet for social networking. According to this report, which came out at the end of last year. So obviously there's a lot of people using social media, and this is why it's another reason why I've wanted to talk about this topic, because I think it affects pretty much everybody at the moment. So the next one, so social media has been described as more addictive than blank and blank. So again, I don't know if you've seen this, Jamie.
I can imagine what the blanks could be with addictive things at the moment. So yeah, probably alcohol will be up there.
Yeah, alcohol is one, and the other one is cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously two really known things that have been like addictive, and obviously affect people's lives massively. I think it's just it just hits home a bit how addictive social media is, and we don't realise that because there's not the warnings. Like with alcohol and cigarettes, there's started to be big sort of campaigns and pushes, especially with cigarettes, to how it's affecting people's health. Alcohol is a little bit slower at the moment with terms of that, but there's nothing really on social media on how it actually is affecting people's lives, and sometimes in a real sort of negative way. Okay, so I argue this case when I'll show you the number, but rates of anxiety and depression in young people have risen by a certain percent in the past 25 years.
It's a very interesting one. I reckon we could do a podcast just on this bullet point, but I feel like the word anxiety has just skyrocketed in general. People talk about being anxious and having anxiety a lot more than I ever remember. So yeah, I'm expecting a high number again.
Yeah, so 70%.
Wow.
This is which is massive. There's a couple of things that I think like I said, sort of 10 years ago, I've always sort of been honest, and I have struggled with anxiety, but I think when I was at school, there was nobody sort of talking about it. It was very much there's quite a lot of stigma behind it, and so I didn't really sort of talk about it to people, where I hope that people feel a little bit more comfortable to talk if they are feeling like they're dealing with anxiety like quite often. So even though I think social media might have had an effect on this, I also think it's had a good effect, and that's why people are talking about it. So I think there's like pros and cons with this one.
Yeah, one of the young people that ThinkHigher works with was talking to me about this. So I won't say who she is, but she had been told by the doctor that she had anxiety, and I don't think she fully understood the sort of diagnosis. And a lot of it was linked to social media and how she was being perceived. But when I saw her again a few months later, she'd been to a group at CAMS, and it was like a group therapy session. And she said it really helped. So one of the things for her was that there were other people similar to her who had the same feelings, and that reassured her. So I think when she first was diagnosed with anxiety, it felt like she was the only one, which, from my perspective, I'd be like, of course it's not. But when you're in the middle of it, it's sometimes hard to recognize. So the fact that she just had other people talking about the same emotions, the same feelings and thoughts, just really helped her and made it feel a bit more normal. So that feeling, I think social media can help with bringing that sort of feeling, but it can also cause the problem as well. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, definitely. I think just seeing, like you said, if you haven't seen people showing like that sort of vulnerable side of being anxious, then you don't think anybody else has got it. It's not something that you can see. So yeah, I think that's like very accurate what you were saying with that story.
Mm.
Okay, so I talked about cyberbullying throughout. Now, how many people out of 10 do you think have experienced some form of cyberbullying? So just have a think while you're listening to this, what you expect the number to be. So it's 7 in 10 people say they've experienced some sort of cyberbullying, which I think's just massive. Normally I'd do this in a classroom, but we don't have that facility now. But yeah, so what, a usual classroom is probably 25 to 30 people. So you're talking, yeah, talking about 14 to 21 people in that class. I don't know if the maths is right there. Yeah.
It's quick maths, Josh. I hope it's right.
So between that many people in just one class will have experienced it, and I think that's just massive. And I think, especially with, we won't go too far into it, but the Caroline Flack stuff that's happened recently and the sort of hashtag Be Kind, I think just shows how much sort of cyberbullying and trolling and stuff like that really affects people's lives. So yeah, I was shocked when I read that stat for the first time.
Definitely. I feel like going to sound old now, but when I was a teenager, people often referred to bullying as character building, and I think what they meant by that was if you played for a sports team or you had a bunch of friends, that if they all made fun of you, how you responded to that would sort of determine, how strong your character was. But the difference there was that, because I would say in amongst a group of like a football team, I might have been bullied occasionally, but at the end of it, you get to see that there's people can be friendly, or they can sort of sum up and say, we're only joking, and it can maybe reassure you. Whereas with online and cyberbullying, there usually isn't that sort of facility. So there's not going to be someone at the end of that around to put their arm around you online. So I think that's where a huge sort of shift in what we refer to as bullying and how it affects young people greatly online, or any people online, is that, yeah, unless you speak to someone who's close to you and tell them what's going on, it's hard to get that sort of feeling like it's going to be okay. So yeah, it's a real shift. It's something we're having to deal with quickly, and things are changing, and young people are having phones and access to social media. So how we navigate this is really important. And it's, yeah, I feel like I saw this stat 10 years ago and the number was like 4 or 5. So the fact that it's now 7 out of 10 is kind of scary.
Yeah, no, definitely. So there's just a couple of more bullet points that had come from this report. They don't have numbers, so I can reveal it, but I think it's important to talk about. So social media use is linked with increased rates of anxiety, depression, and poor sleep, which I think is massively. This report's like looked into it. There's a load of reports like this, and it does say the same thing. These 3 things really link together. I feel like if you're feeling anxious about something, then you are going to struggle to sleep. And if you're not sleeping well, you're not going to be feeling your best. When you're not feeling your best, you're going to start feeling a bit depressed about stuff that's around you. So all 3 of them link together. Or it could just start from poor sleep. You being on like social media at the wrong hours of the day. It's keeping you up. You're only having 4 or 5 hours instead of probably like 6, 7, which you should be having. So yeah, I think the amount of reports that have gone into this and seen that it does increase is why I want to get this message out about just using social media as a balance, basically. This is this is a good one. Those who use social media report being more emotionally supported through their contacts, so they feel like they can talk to a lot of different people and get help where maybe they wouldn't do it face to face, because maybe you don't want to seem so vulnerable when you're by somebody, but a message or something like that can help. So I think that's where that sort of stat comes from, the report. Okay, so we're gonna end up, but I just want to do a little bit of a summary of what I think you should take from this podcast. So social media is addictive, and being aware of that is probably the first thing that you need to know. Making sure that you balance your time with it is going to be really important. The second thing is understand that it's not good to compare yourself with others. This is just a genuine thing, but a general thing, not a genuine thing. But yeah, comparing yourself to others is not good, but social media like blows this up. So just being aware of what you're scrolling through, who you're seeing, what are the people that are on your social media, especially if you follow celebrities, then you will only get links to certain things as well. So don't compare yourself with others. Don't believe everything you read on social media. We talked about it in a little bit of depth, didn't we, earlier? But yeah, I think you could possibly come out, be it looking silly, or you could be spreading news that's not accurate, as in Jamie's, was it Iran or Iraq? I can't remember.
It was Iran, and then the last week or so. So yeah, very poignant example.
Yeah. And then know who you're talking to. It can be seen as a bit of a joke of obviously watching catfish. I used to do it. I used to enjoy it, but it can have a real bad effect on people's lives. So just being aware of that. And then if needed, there's loads of places that you can ask for help using social media, or if you are struggling with cyberbullying, talk to people. The sort of bravest thing that you can do is ask for help, and that's not you giving up. It's literally the opposite. It's showing that you aren't willing to give up if you are asking for help. But yeah, that is the end of this podcast. I hope you've enjoyed. We've probably gone on a little bit longer than we anticipated, but I hope you've got a lot from it. And like I said at the beginning, we're going to try and get one out at least a week, so you can see from your ThinkHigher coordinators. So obviously myself and Jamie today. Do you want to say anything before we go, Jamie?
I was just going to say we did probably go on slightly too long, but it's an important topic. If you have any ideas of topics that we could discuss, we'd love to hear from you. So maybe put a little comment in, depending on if this is on YouTube or Instagram where you've seen it. And we'll probably chop this up into clips, so you can just look at certain aspects of what we've talked about. But yeah, thank you for listening and watching.
Yeah. Okay. Goodbye.
Bye. I've got to stop, haven't I?
You do have to stop it. We should add that on to the end.
Yeah.
You best hope.
I actually don't know how to stop it. Is it in the... There we go. Stop recording.